In the world of live entertainment, the public is easily tricked. They see a reflection on a piece of angled glass or a projection on a cloud of smoke, and they call it a hologram. But true free space volumetric rendering, actually forcing photons to stop and glow in midair without a screen, is not a magic trick. It is a terrifying manipulation of quantum physics. You are using converging femtosecond lasers to superheat nitrogen and oxygen molecules, literally creating microscopic bursts of plasma in thin air, millions of times a second, to draw a three-dimensional sculpture made of pure light. A single miscalculation in the focal algorithm, and the image collapses into a chaotic, blinding blur. I have spent my entire life learning how to control light, how to bend it, and how to create perfect, beautiful illusions. I just never realized that while I was obsessively perfecting the illusion in my laboratory, my own marriage was the most elaborate, empty projection of them all. My name is Orion. I'm 37 years old, and I am a lead spatial computing engineer and holographic architect. 6 years ago, I married Serena. Serena was a high-powered talent manager and executive promoter for the live music industry. She thrived in the deafening, champagne-soaked world of stadium tours, VIP backstage passes, and celebrity egos. I was the introverted scientist who preferred the absolute dead silence of my optical laboratory. We were opposites, but I thought we were the perfect ecosystem. She brought the audience, and I built the spectacle that made them scream. For 5 grueling years, I poured every ounce of my personal savings, my sanity, and my genius into my absolute magnum opus. I called it Project Phantasm. It wasn't just a projector. It was a $20 million revolutionary hardware and software matrix. By coordinating a massive array of specialized lasers, my engine could render a 100-foot-tall, 8K resolution, fully 3D volumetric avatar in the center of a stadium. It required no screens, no rigging, and no smoke. It was the absolute holy grail of the global entertainment industry. The patents for the spatial rendering engine alone were appraised at roughly $20 million. I promised Serena this technology was our empire. I told her that when we licensed the hardware to a major tour, we would be set for life. She would be the undisputed queen of global concert promotion. But Serena didn't want to build a kingdom with an engineer in a dark room. She looked at my laser-burned hands and my exhausted eyes, and she decided she wanted the $20 million, but she wanted to stand on the main stage with someone else.
The focal point of our marriage started to drift when Serena's agency partnered with a massive global live entertainment syndicate. The CEO of that syndicate was a man named Vance. Vance was 45 years old and the absolute poster boy for corporate arrogance. He didn't play an instrument, he didn't write code, and he had absolutely no creative talent. He was a ruthless venture capitalist who bought up massive music festivals, slapped his aggressive logo on the stages, and charged fans astronomical prices for cheap experiences. He wore custom leather jackets, flew in a company-branded private jet, and treated brilliant visual artists and sound engineers like disposable roadies. In my industry, guys like Vance are considered absolute parasites. Suddenly, Serena was spending all her time at Vance's Glass Tower headquarters in Los Angeles, claiming she was restructuring his global visual strategy for a new stadium tour. The red flags didn't just quietly appear. They flashed like a high-powered strobe light. First, the profound, unapologetic disrespect. Serena started actively belittling my life's work. "Orion, you need to wake up," she scoffed one evening, tossing her $5,000 designer handbag onto my pristine optical table. "Vance manages a billion-dollar touring portfolio. He builds cultural moments. You've been sitting in a dark basement playing with expensive flashlights for 5 years and haven't made a single dime. You lack corporate vision. Nobody cares about your quantum physics. They care about the ticket sales." Second, the intense, unnatural secrecy regarding her devices. Serena changed the passcode on her phone and her laptop. She started taking crisis logistics calls in her car, sitting in the driveway with the engine running for 40 minutes before coming inside. Third, and by far the most terrifying, was her sudden, highly specific interest in my hardware vault. Serena, a woman who absolutely loathed the hum of my cooling fans, suddenly asked me exactly how much the massive laser arrays weighed, and if the proprietary rendering software could be copied onto an encrypted portable SSD drive. When a talent promoter suddenly asks about the freight weight of a $20 million unpatented optical prototype, you don't answer the question. You calibrate the lenses and look for the distortion. When you build proprietary spatial computing technology that requires millions of dollars in laser hardware, you don't rely on a simple padlock. My entire laboratory was routed through a custom telemetry mainframe, but more importantly, the lab was equipped with LiDAR motion sensors and optical data loggers. One Saturday night, while Serena was supposedly at a weekend VIP retreat in Vegas, my phone vibrated with a critical priority alert from the lab. Someone was actively attempting to execute a mass file transfer from my secure rendering server to an unauthorized external cloud storage locker. I didn't storm down the hall and pull the power cord. I simply isolated the connection, artificially slowed the transfer speed to a crawl to buy myself time, and mirrored her laptop screen directly to my home monitors. She had her encrypted messaging app open, communicating directly with Vance. I didn't just find an affair. I found a premeditated, multi-million-dollar corporate heist. Vance wrote, "My technical directors just reviewed the compressed simulation code you sneaked out last week. They are completely losing their minds. The volumetric rendering is 10 years ahead of anything Industrial Light and Magic has. If we launch this as the grand finale of our new stadium tour at Wembley next month, our company valuation will triple. Have you secured the master source code and the physical laser arrays yet?" Serena replied, her words dripping with a casual, horrifying cruelty that made the blood freeze in my veins. "I'm copying the master repository from his server right now. The idiot actually thinks I care about his stupid laser pointers. Tomorrow, when he goes to his optics symposium in Boston, I'll hire a heavy transport crew to load the 2-ton laser rigs into a truck. We'll launch the hologram in London. I'll serve him with divorce papers the morning after, and we'll be on your yacht. He has no money to fight your corporate lawyers. He's just a sad, paranoid nerd, Vance. We're going to own the sky." Vance responded, "You're a visionary, my love. The basement nerd is going to fund our entire empire." I sat alone in the dark, the hum of my servers filling the absolute silence, staring at the glowing monitor as my entire reality shattered into a million pieces. My wife of 6 years was sleeping with a corporate parasite. Together, they were actively plotting to steal 5 years of my blood, sweat, and genius, intentionally hijack my masterpiece, launch it on the biggest stage in the world, and leave me utterly destroyed and destitute. They thought I was just a sad, paranoid nerd. They didn't understand the level of absolute, unmitigated digital and optical destruction a master spatial engineer is capable of rendering.
If you want to destroy a fraudulent concert promoter, you don't cut his microphone cables. You let them steal your technology. You let him build a massive stadium stage. You let him invite the wealthiest investors on Earth, and then you quietly rewrite the light. I didn't confront her. If I yelled and locked the lab, Vance's army of corporate lawyers would bury me in injunctions, claim they had a verbal contract to the design, and tie me up in court for a decade until I went bankrupt. I needed them to steal the heavy laser arrays. I needed Vance to proudly stand on a stage in front of 90,000 people and hit the launch button on my machine. So, I went to work on the back end. I took the true uncompiled master source code, encrypted it with a 256-bit key, and moved it to an air-gapped hard drive that I locked in a bank vault. Then, I turned my attention to the cloned code they were planning to steal. To Vance's highly paid, arrogant visual directors, the cloned code I left on the server would look absolutely flawless. It would compile perfectly. When they connected it to the stolen laser arrays in their private rehearsals, it would render their 100-foot pop star avatar perfectly. But deeply embedded in the absolute foundational math of the volumetric matrix execution protocol, buried so deep in the hex code that no QA tester on Earth would ever find it, I wrote a logic bomb. I didn't use a timer. I used a DMX lighting trigger. I knew Vance's massive stadium shows. I knew that at the absolute climax of the opening night, he would trigger the stadium's all-white blinder lights to wash out the crowd right before the hologram appeared. I coded the rendering engine so that when it received that specific DMX lighting signal, the payload would execute. It wouldn't shut the lasers down. It would violently hijack the render queue. Instead of projecting the majestic 100-foot popstar avatar, the system would pull a hidden, heavily compressed 3D file I buried in the registry. It was a volumetric 8K resolution rendering compiled directly from my lab security cameras. and simultaneously it would route the audio track of their WhatsApp voice notes directly into the stadium's main PA system. I finalized the patch. I left the cloned code on my server. The next morning, I packed my bags for the symposium in Boston. I kissed Serena goodbye. "Have a great trip, Orion," she smiled, handing me my coffee. "Take care of the lab, Serena," I replied, looking her dead in the eyes. "You know that project is my masterpiece." "I'll guard it with my life," she promised. I drove away. I let her bring the thieves into my sanctuary. I let them steal the bomb. Now, they just had to turn on the lights.
I didn't go to Boston. I drove straight to the offices of the most aggressive, ruthless, intellectual property and corporate fraud litigator in California. I sat down at his mahogany conference table. I handed him my original, time-stamped code logs. I handed him the high-definition security footage and the crystal-clear iCloud transcripts of Serena and Vance explicitly conspiring to steal the files and the 2-ton physical laser arrays. And finally, I handed him the official, federally approved patent documentation for the Phantasm optical engine, which I had secretly expedited and secured exclusively in my own name a month prior. My wife and her accomplice are going to illegally utilize stolen, patented spatial computing hardware to anchor a global stadium tour launching at Wembley Stadium next Saturday, I told my lawyer calmly. My lawyer reviewed the documents, read the chat logs, and slowly smiled like a shark smelling blood in the water. Orion, utilizing stolen, patented holographic technology to solicit hundreds of millions of dollars in ticket sales and investor funding, is massive, willful federal fraud. If he presents this to boost his corporate valuation, we won't just sue him. The SEC and international authorities will literally liquidate his entire entertainment empire. "Draft the paperwork," I said, "but do not file the injunction yet. Do not stop the show. Let him power up the lasers. I want him to put his face on it in front of the whole world." On Wednesday afternoon, my phone notified me that my lab doors had been breached. Through the hidden cameras, I watched Vance's logistics team illegally load my $1-million laser arrays into unmarked trucks. Serena left a white envelope containing divorce papers on my desk and walked out without looking back. They were laughing. They thought they had just executed the perfect, untouchable heist. But they had no idea they had just installed a digital executioner directly into their own stadium. Saturday night, live from Wembley Stadium, London, the undisputed pinnacle of live music. I sat in my dark hotel room, watching the high-definition live streams from the event on my monitors. The broadcast had over 5 million active viewers. Vance was hyping up the crowd, pacing back and forth across the massive main stage, absolutely dripping with unearned confidence. The camera panned to the VIP section, and I saw Serena standing there, holding a glass of champagne, looking incredibly proud, believing she had just secured a billion-dollar empire. The stadium was packed with 90,000 screaming fans and 50 of the wealthiest entertainment investors on Earth. "London!" Vance roared into his microphone, his voice oozing with arrogance. "Tonight, we don't just put on a show. We defy reality. My engineering team has built the impossible. Behold, the future!" The crowd went absolutely wild. Dramatic music pounded through the stadium speakers. Vance raised his hand and signaled the control booth. The stadium's massive all-white blinder lights flashed, washing out the entire arena in blinding white light for exactly 2 seconds. I looked at the screen. I knew the code. My logic bomb executed. In a fraction of a millisecond, the rendering engine bypassed the local user network. The converging femtosecond lasers fired into the night sky above the stadium, but instead of drawing a majestic 100-foot avatar of the pop star, the light violently shifted. The 90,000 fans gasped. Towering 100 feet in the air, rendered in breathtaking, crystal-clear, glowing 3D light, was a hyper-realistic projection of Vance and Serena standing in my laboratory. The crowd went dead, pin drop silent. Then, the massive stadium surround sound system hijacked the audio. Instead of music, it blasted the raw, unedited voice notes from their encrypted chats at 120 decibels. Serena's voice boomed across the London sky like thunder. "I'm copying the master repository from his server right now. The idiot actually thinks I care about his stupid laser pointers. He has no money to fight your corporate lawyers. He's just a sad, paranoid nerd, Vance." Vance's voice echoed back, completely undeniable. "You're a visionary, my love. The basement nerd is going to fund our entire empire." Below the 100-foot projection, the lasers spelled out in massive, burning red letters. "Stolen intellectual property. Vance is a fraud." Absolute, apocalyptic chaos erupted. The 90,000 fans didn't cheer. They started booing. A deafening, angry roar of boos and confusion echoed through the stadium. Vance froze on stage, his face turning purple with panic. "Cut the power! Turn off the lasers! Pull the plug!" He screamed at his technical directors, desperately running across the stage as if he could cover the 100-foot projection with his hands. But my code had locked the system. The lasers just kept firing, relentlessly burning their betrayal into the sky for a full 60 seconds. In the VIP section, Serena dropped her champagne glass. It shattered. She put her hands over her mouth, her face turning the color of wet concrete, looking around in absolute, unadulterated horror as 90,000 people stared at her glowing 100-foot face. The investors in the VIP box stood up in absolute disgust, realizing they were tied to a massive federal theft. The live streams captured every single agonizing, humiliating seconds. I took a slow, deeply satisfying sip of my coffee, smiled at the chaotic live stream, and texted my lawyer. Fade to black.
You cannot unbroadcast a 100-foot-tall holographic confession to 90,000 people. The fallout was an absolute, unmitigated, scorched earth massacre. The video of the giant glowing betrayal went viral globally within 10 minutes. By Sunday morning, Vance was the biggest laughingstock in the history of live entertainment. The wealthy investors who had funded his global tour instantly pulled their money and filed massive lawsuits against him for gross misrepresentation, fraud, and corporate espionage. The entire stadium tour was canceled. But the real fatal blow came from the federal authorities. Because Vance had utilized stolen, patented hardware to solicit hundreds of millions of dollars in ticket sales and investor funding, international authorities and the SEC launched an immediate investigation. His entertainment empire completely collapsed. His bank accounts were frozen, and he was indicted for massive corporate fraud, facing 15 years in a federal penitentiary. Serena's life was vaporized. Vance, realizing he was facing total ruin, immediately blamed her. He told investigators that she was a rogue talent manager who had supplied him with the stolen, malicious technology without his knowledge. He threw her overboard to save himself. She called me from a hotel room in London, sobbing so hard she was hyperventilating. Orion, please. The authorities are here. Vance dumped me. The lasers projected my face in the sky. You have to tell them you made a mistake with the code. Please, I have nothing." "I didn't make a mistake, Serena," I said calmly, leaning back in my chair. "I gave you exactly what you stole. You just forgot to check the render queue. I heard your voice notes, by the way. Check your email. You've been served with a federal IP lawsuit. Enjoy the show." I hung up and blocked her number. During our divorce settlement, she had absolutely zero leverage. Because she was facing criminal charges for corporate espionage and grand larceny against me, the judge awarded me 100% of the marital assets and denied her any alimony. She walked away with millions in legal debt and an international felony record.
It's been almost 3 years since that catastrophic premiere at Wembley. After the dust finally settled and the lawsuits were paid out, I licensed the real, fully functioning, flawless source code for Project Phantasm. I didn't sell it to a flashy concert promoter. I sold the exclusive rights to a legendary, highly respected global theatrical production company. A company that actually understands optical engineering, respects the physics, and treats its creators like true partners. I made enough money from that single contract to buy my own independent spatial computing firm, hire a full team of developers, and my business has never been better. Last I heard, Serena avoided a long prison sentence by taking a plea deal, but she is completely blacklisted from the entertainment and PR industries globally. She is currently working as an usher at a budget movie theater, tearing tickets in the dark, knowing every single day that she voluntarily threw away her golden ticket to the absolute top of the industry. Vance, completely bankrupt and ruined, is currently serving a 7-year sentence for massive securities fraud. He has no stadium tours, no bespoke jackets, and definitely no holograms. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's a simple one. Never try to hijack a projection if you don't know the architect who controls the light. If your partner thinks they can steal your hard work, push you into the shadows, and take the main stage for themselves, don't try to pull the plug. Don't fight them for the servers. Smile, hand them the hardware, let them wire up their massive stadium, and let them confidently invite the whole world inside. And right when they think they've conquered the future, just let the code execute, turn off the lights, and let the whole sky show exactly what they deserve. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's the most embarrassing technological failure you've ever witnessed? Stay sharp, trust the math, and always, always encrypt your source code.